Hi y'all, this is a little surprising for me because I fully did not expect to make this video today, wasn't planning on it, and I figured why the heck not? I want to discuss the 10 books I want to read before the year ends. I think this is my third year in a row making this video, so I have to make it. I just wasn't sure when it was going to happen, and it seems like today's the best day to do it, so here we are. Off to my right here, I have a stack of books. It's not all 10 because I don't own all 10, but I'm going to tell you guys the books that I'm going to try to prioritize before the year ends. Am I going to read them all? Probably not, but I know probably like at least half will get read because I am very, very motivated to get these read. Let's just jump right in with the first book. And that is the biggest, thickest, heaviest book that I currently own, and that is 11/22/63 by Stephen King. I'm happy to report that I actually am in the middle of this. If you guys can see here, I'm about 25 to 30% through it. It is a hefty book. There's about 800 pages, so I'm doing a little bit of damage. I've literally been going back and forth between the physical version, the digital version on my Kindle, and then listening to it via audiobook because I think that's the only way I'm going to get through it. So far, I am really liking it. This is more of a sci-fi book, which is usually a little bit out of my comfort zone. I don't tend to reach for that genre very often, but this is Stephen King, and this is probably one of his most popular books. It's one of the ones that I've heard the most about, and it seems interesting. Obviously, 11/22/63, if you didn't know, is the assassination date of JFK. So we follow a high school teacher as he goes back in time trying to change the events of that day. Let me bring you guys a little bit lower. All right, I readjusted you guys for a second, but that is what is like the main plot of this book. So far, we've already followed our main character kind of go back in time, and he's trying to figure out like the kind of person he is, the kind of choices he wants to make, how far back or how far is he willing to go to change history. So that's kind of the main plot, and I am liking it so far. This has been on my TBR for like plus 2-3 years. This is an automatic like must read. If I don't finish this, I quit reading because there's no better time than now. So this is definitely one of the 10 books that I want to read before the year ends, and luckily I've already started it, so I'm on the path to getting it read. Next up, we have a fantasy book, and that is Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. I feel like this book I've already also talked about ad nauseum. This is a fantasy read. This is the start of a new series, a new trilogy. I actually have all 3 books already, and I haven't even started the first book, but Stephanie Garber is, I think, my favorite fantasy author, specifically fantasy, and I just love her world building. This one is like loosely tied to the Caraval trilogy, which I fell in love with earlier this year, so that's what made me buy this book. I really just want to get it read, this one specifically, because I want to start the series before the year ends. I think it'll be a great series to start during this time, during November, when it's like fall. It's still the perfect time for me, in my opinion, to read fantasy, and I think once we escape into winter, I'll still be in the mood for fantasy, but after that, I might not be, so I want to prioritize this to at least get the trilogy started, and I just have a feeling that once I start this one, I'm going to definitely want to continue the series because, like I mentioned, Stephanie Garber, one of my favorite fantasy authors. Now, this is loosely about the Prince of Hearts, who is a character in Caraval, so I'm very interested to see kind of what his role is going to be in this series. And that's really all I know about it. I don't want to go too much in depth and like spoil things for myself, but this is romantasy, so romance and fantasy, which are like 2 of my favorite genres. I feel like this year specifically, I've read a lot of fantasy and I'm quickly falling in love with it. I don't want to read too many. I feel like at this point in the book talk, booktube universe, people are getting kind of tired of the genre because a lot is a little bit repetitive, and I haven't really run into that just yet, so I'm trying to like pace myself, and maybe that's why I haven't picked this book up sooner. But I definitely plan on getting it read this month or next, and potentially starting my new favorite fantasy series. Next up, we have another fantasy. I mean, this is the time, like I mentioned, November and December are gonna be fantasy months, I think. This is One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. I believe it was on my October or September TBR. Unfortunately, it didn't get read, so it's back on the TBR cart, but I still want to really try and prioritize this book because I just feel like I'm gonna love it. Over the years, I feel like I've heard a lot about fantasy as a genre, but I haven't read too much. This year specifically is when I did start getting more into it, and this is one of those books that I fear has not left my mind. It's always been recommended, and going back like a few years years to when I started kind of the channel and bookstagram, this has always been a very highly rated book. So obviously, color me interested. Now that I'm more into fantasy, this is one of the first series that I want to really read and dive into. I believe this is just a duology, which makes it easier in my opinion to get it read because it's short. And I do already own the second book, Two Twisted Crowns. It is sitting, I think, on the shelf behind me. So hopefully I get this read so I can dive into the next one, but this is definitely high up on my priority list. This is one of the 10 books that I want to get read before the year ends. This book specifically, I really don't know much about because I tried reading the back and it was like kind of confusing. So I feel like I haven't really run into fantasy reads that have been too hard to digest or anything too big in terms of world building. And I fear this one might do that to me, so I feel like I have to really be in a good reading mood and hopefully some colder weather outside to really like dive into this one, because I think once that is like going for me, it'll be the perfect vibe and I will inevitably pick this book up. So hopefully I get this read. Next up, we have Dark Academia, and that is The Secret History by Donna Tartt. I just recently found out that this is more of like a newer classic, which I did not know that. So now I'm interested to read it because of that, but also because I've been dying to read this for a few months now. Along the same lines of One Dark Window being popular for many years, this is one of those books as well. This is Dark Academia. I think we're following 4 or 5 people in a boarding school, and the vibe is just super fall and November. So again, I feel like if I'm gonna read it any other time, it's gonna be this month. I do feel majority of these 10 before the end books that I'm gonna talk about are like fall and winter coded, because obviously those are the months that we are in, and I am very much a mood reader, and I feel like when I'm in a colder month, I want to pick up fantasy reads and just kind of more darker, more mysterious books, and this is one of those, kind of just fits that mold. Donna Tartt, I have never read anything about, but I feel like I've really heard that this is like a love it or hate it type of book, and I'm just so curious to kind of see where I fall. I haven't loved classics really, like I'm just not that type of person. I feel like they're very slow, and I feel like I know that going into this one, but if it has a really strong plot and it's memorable, then I think it'll be worth it. So I am definitely going to pick this up sooner rather than later, hopefully. And I will, of course, let you guys know kind of what I think, but I think this is the true test of Dark Academia. I think the only book that I've really read in that genre is a thriller mystery, and I loved it. But to be honest, I loved like the Dark Academia vibe of it the most. So that's why I think reading this is perfect for me. I feel like it'll just be right up my alley. So this is another book on my list. All right, I pinned you guys to my shirt, so hopefully it doesn't look too weird, but I got tired of holding the microphone, so you guys are under my shirt. Next book that I want to talk about that I want to prioritize in the next couple of months is Cleopatra and Frankenstein, another book that I've been mentioning over and over and over again, mostly because I love the cover. Coco Melors, I've read one other book by her, Blue Sisters, fell in love with it, and now I'm very excited to see what I'm going to think of another book written by her. And this is also her debut novel, so I'm very interested to kind of just see how it all started for her. Also, Cleopatra and Frankenstein, I will say it's not super spooky, I don't think, from like the vibe on the back that I'm getting. It's more of a contemporary fiction book, but it has Frankenstein in the title, so of course I'm going to kind of associate it with this type of season naturally, and so that's why I feel like I really want to pick it up. It's also not super long, so I feel like it's something that should be easy to digest, should be easy to read. It's an age gap romance set in New York City. I love New York City. I love romances that are more like realistic, and this one already kind of has like a big sort of barrier or issue that is associated with it, which is that huge age gap. So I'm just very curious to kind of see what the heck is going to happen and how our main characters are going to navigate this relationship. So I feel like the plot, the setting, everything about it is really just calling my name, the author, and this is on my November TBR. So I will absolutely be reading it this month. This I already cannot wait to pick up. I'm just waiting to kind of get a little further along with like 11/22/63 and some other books I'm like finishing up, and this will certainly be next. Next up, we have another fantasy read, and that is Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil. This book is also very thick, just like 11/22/63. This is a fantasy book with like some magical realism. V.E. Schwab She is the author of The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, which I put off since like 2020, and I think I read it last year, and I really liked that book, so I am not making that same mistake this time around. This book came out I think like a month or two ago, so it's still decently new, and so I really just want to get it read this year and not put it off for too long, especially since I own it. I do think this fantasy sort of gothic, mysterious vibe is perfect for the time of season that we're in. This is about 3 young women, and it says their bodies planted in the same soil, their stories tingling like roots, one grows high and one grows deep and one grows wild, and all of them grow teeth. That just sounds so mysterious and interesting. I think I've also heard this is like a lesbian vampire vibe to it, so I'm not too sure, but I do want to go into it kind of blindly. It's also 3 different timelines. So one of them is 1532 in Santo Domingo de la Calzada. I don't really even know where that is. The other one is 1827, taking place in London, and last but not least, 2019 in Boston. So I think that's so interesting. We're really gonna get 3 different vibes, 3 different characters, and I'm assuming inevitably their fates or destinies are gonna interlock somehow. I don't know. I'm fascinated by the premise. B.E. Schwab is also another author that I feel like is very descriptive in her language, the way she describes things, and she has some very memorable quotes. So I feel like if you're that type of author and you give me like any sort of semblance of a seasonal read, I'm gonna pick up your work, and I think this one falls exactly into that category. Next up, we have kind of our first winter read, and the reason I say winter read is because look at the cover of The Winners by Frederick Bachman. This is book 3 in the Beartown trilogy, and I actually read Beartown and I forgot what the second one is called, but I read those 2 books literally like January, February of this year, and I chose to wait to read this last book in the series until like December because I wanted to read it in the winter. Obviously the cover is extremely winter coded. I think it's gonna be one of those reads that's very ambient in the setting, and I feel like I just wasn't emotionally ready to dive into this book. It is a very heavy sort of series. We have so many characters that we follow, and I feel like Frederick Bachman is not my favorite author necessarily. His work is very hit or miss for me, but I have found that the Beartown trilogy is one that is definitely a hit for me. I love everything he did with it. I love the plot, I love the characters, and I love the emotional aspect as well. But like I mentioned, we follow very many characters. This takes place in Beartown, which is kind of like a small town. It is brought together mostly through the junior hockey team, and there's a lot that's going on this junior hockey team. There's a lot of relationships that are being made and broken and all of this drama, and there's also something extremely tragic that happens to one of our characters. And so we just kind of follow our characters as they try to navigate all of this and the fallout, the repercussions, the consequences of some real life stuff happening, and how inevitably too, power, money, wealth, influence is almost like a scapegoat for some people. Like some people you can see do not get what they deserve because of their influence and their power and their society standing. So it makes a very compelling story to be read, and I feel like this series or trilogy would make a really good TV show actually, because we have so many characters that we like get to explore and to follow and learn about and fall in love with and hate. Like there's just so many emotions that are being kind of thrown at us and we're going through as we're reading this. So I feel like in the winter, I'm finally gonna be emotionally ready to read this book. I'm a little sad, I'm excited, but I'm scared. I don't know what to expect. I do feel like it's gonna be really good, so I guess we'll just see. But this is definitely one of those 10 before the end. I have to read it before the year ends. All right, next we have a book that I do own, and that is The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. Another classic, I would say, for sure. This is one of those books that is very widely known, very popular, and I feel like it's definitely been on my radar for such a long time. And I think the reason I want to prioritize it now is because obviously I bought it. I don't want to have it sit on the TBR cart for years and months like all my other books usually tend to do. So we're gonna prioritize this since I bought it literally last month. And I think too, the time and place that we're in our society, it's just like the best time to read it, unfortunately. Like I want to know what's in here. I also want to watch the TV show. So that's obviously a huge motivator. And I think since I bought it, it's time to rip the band-aid off and get it over with. This is dystopian. I believe this takes place in like a dystopian type of United States of America, where the women are merely treated kind of as people or just vessels to conceive and to provide, you know, life. But that's really all they are. At least that's kind of the vibe that I get from what I've heard about the show. And so it's not a long book, which makes it, you know, attractive to pick up because I don't think I'll have to dedicate too much time to it. And I think it's just time for me to know what The Handmaid's Tale is, and again, compare it eventually to the TV show. So I think that is kind of what's motivating me the most to read this book. And I'm a little scared, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I do not know what I'm getting myself into reading this. If you've read this, please let me know what you think, because I feel like I'm really gonna like it. I don't know, this is not really a genre that I pick up often at all. Like, classic and dystopian are two that are a little intimidating because I don't pick them up often, but I think it'll be interesting, you know. What the heck, we'll see. I have no more books right here next to me, so the other two I don't own. The first one is Winter Garden by Kristen Hanna. Now, I kind of spur of the moment added this to the list because I think obviously it's another book that has a cover that is associated with winter, that it makes it attractive for me to want to pick up in the next few months. And I've read, I think, 2 Kristen Hanna books already this year. She's my favorite author, and I don't own another book by her that I haven't read, so I think maybe potentially buying this book and reading it in the December time will be fun. I don't know. Again, spur of the moment. I was kind of not knowing what else to add to the list. So I looked at my shelf and I was like, okay, obviously I want to read Kristen Hanna because she's my favorite. So what other book could I read from her? And this one caught my eye. So this is definitely a top contender for me to try to read before the year ends. I don't actually know what it's about at all, but it being written by Kristen Hanna is enough for me to pick it up and to want to read it because, like I mentioned, all of her books are just so good. And I think my favorite thing about her books by far is the fact that they shed a light on women's stories during a time where women are kind of just pushed aside and not really prioritized or talked about. For example, her other books have centered on the Vietnam War, which is a lot about male veterans and active duty people. Then we have The Nightingale, which is about World War II, and that's usually always only about Nazis in Germany and the men in the war. And then I recently read The Four Winds, which is about the Great Depression and immigrants. And I don't know, it's just refreshing to read like a story about a woman during these tumultuous times that they're usually very overlooked. So I don't really even know what Winter Garden is about, but I would be down to read it. All right, I'm like sweating. I don't know why, but the last and final book that we want to read before the year ends is Recursion by Blake Crouch. Now, I actually recently had this book sitting on my shelf for quite a while because I had picked it up from the library, but I just didn't read it. And so again, I was looking at my Goodreads and thinking about books that I would want to read before the year ends. And I think this book would be a great choice because it's another one of those books that's kind of out of my comfort zone. I believe it's more of a sci-fi book, and it's Blake Crouch, which I've never read anything by. And I've heard so many great things about this book, like genuinely only amazing things about this book. So obviously that makes me interested. And I don't know, everything about it, like the cover is cool. What I've heard from the story is cool. It being a male author is interesting to me because I really don't read too many male authors. So whenever I see a book kind of recommended by a male author, it just piques my interest a little bit. And so I think it's kind of like a combination of all these things that makes me want to pick it up. I also feel like it would be a really fast read, so another great thing going for it. And it also feels like it would be a bit of a palate cleanser because it's not a genre or a type of book that I usually read. So that's really all I have to say about that book. But that concludes all 10 books that I want to try to read before the year ends. Fingers crossed I'll get through at least half of them, if not all of them. I think it'd be really cool. They're all books that I'm very, very interested in, and hopefully you guys are interested in seeing me talk about them eventually. One last and final note is that I think we are going to be doing a big unhaul of our TBR cart. I feel like the cart has been very stagnant for the last like 2 years. And there's definitely books on there that I've had for like over 3 years that I just haven't picked up or I have added to my TBRs and I haven't read. So I'm like, what am I waiting for? Like, I think that's coming up next. So I don't know why I felt compelled to tell you guys that right now and in this video. I was just looking at it and I'm like, something needs to change. So that's it for today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you guys in my next one. Bye.